Testing 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2 1 2. One two one two. Testing for YouTube channel English.
Please speak louder. Maybe there's an issue with your mic. Please maybe bring it closer.
Is it better now, DK? Testing 1 2 1 2. DK, can you hear me?
Voice is not so clear. Could you please continue speaking?
Testing
Yes.
1 2 1 2. Testing.
We hear you, but there seems to be a lag.
Testing 1 2 1 2. DK, is it better now? Test 1 2 1 2. Test 1 2.
Can you hear me, Wayne?
Yes, I can.
Now it's much better for you, Susan.
Could you hear me?
Hello, is that Professor Habib?
Yes, yes.
Yes, we can hear you properly, loud and clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
So DK, mine is okay now, right?
Better.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Thank you.
Hello?
There seems to be a background noise on your side.
Oh, okay.
Now it's better. Thank you.
How about now? Is it better?
Thank you.
How about now?
Yes, it's much better.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to welcome you to AIS 21 Online. Today is the annual general members meeting. My name is Wayne Gurunaden, and I'll be your MC in this session. Before we kickstart the session, allow me to go through the meeting platform interface with you. On the left-hand side of your screen, where your name and your role appear, you will find the media sharing control. Starting from the left, the first icon is to share your preloaded slide. The second is to share your screen with us, and both icons are available for speakers role only. Then we have the camera icon. This icon you can use to start your video while you're on the mic or while you're a speaker. Next icon is the mic icon, and this button can be used to request mic during Q&A session. On this platform, the mic icon can be used as a raised hand button. During the Q&A session, you can either choose the audio queue by clicking on the mic icon, or type your question by choosing the Q&A icon at the bottom of the media control. When speaking, please introduce yourself, mentioning your name, your organization, and country, then go straight to your question while you're on the mic. Below the media control, you have the series of tabs. The first tab is the poll tab for the session, where when there will be a poll, it will pop up on your screen. Next tab is the stenography for live transcription of the session. Next is the Q&A icon that will be used for any question related to presentation and discussion in the session. The moderator of the session will make sure that the question in the Q&A are read out loud This is to accommodate all delegates joining us from various platforms. You will be asked to type your affiliation before typing your question. Once sent, it will not be able to edit your question. Please make sure you check your question properly before you click on the send button. The next tab is the chat panel, and delegates can use to communicate any other related issues to us, any issue concerning the platform or any difficulties you're facing during the session. And a team member will assist you immediately. The last tab on this side is the participant view, where you can view all the participants, and you can place your cursor on the participant name, where you will have a pop-up where you can chat privately with any participant of your choice. Let's move to the top right of your screen. We have other control. The first icon from left is the presentation view, where you can follow the presentation, the slide, while viewing the video on the left-hand side. This is followed by the gallery view icon, where you will be able to see the panelists who have their camera switched on. The third icon is the agenda icon that leads you directly to the meeting agenda on our website. The side room allows you to have a virtual consultation with one of our team member for any assistance or information regarding member services. The other icon include the platform tool, and then next you have the notification setting button, where you can use that to change the setting for notification. Below your screen, you have the audio control. On your left-hand side, you have the British flag and the French flag. You can choose which language you want to listen the session. Delegates are advised to follow the meeting in the language they're most comfortable in. Switching channel will have a lag of a few seconds. If you still need to switch channel, please ensure you first mute your mic. Otherwise, you will get an error message. At the bottom right of your screen are the audio control. If you're having any issue receiving audio, you can press on the refresh button on the far right. Lastly, we are live on Afrinic YouTube and Facebook, both in English and French. We would love to know where you are joining us from. Please do tag us using the hashtag AIS21online and AIS21. Now we go to some house rule. In this session, we'll have time for questions. There are two options. You can either choose to come to the mic by clicking on the audio and the mic icon below your name. When the speaker introduces yourself, when you're speaking, please introduce yourself, name and organization and country, then go straight to your question. Should you have any difficulties during the session, you can either use the chat or email us at AIS2021-support@miteco.com. And we also provide a WhatsApp number, which is +230 5922 3899. And one member team will reply to your message and assist you in any difficulties. For more support, please visit our website. You have the full detail on how to participate and how we can resolve any issues. Lastly, we are live on Afrinic YouTube and Facebook, both in English. Now we'll start the session, which is the AGMM, and the AGMM will be chaired by our board chairman, Mr. Subramanian Munisamy. Chair, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I know it's a bit early in Mauritius. Welcome to the open mic session. Every year, the board has a meeting, which is like an open session, so that our members can provide feedback to us and also questions. So I'm going to open the floor. If you have any questions, please state your name, affiliation, and then ask your question. Thank you. queue.
Hello? I can't hear anything.
Chair, we can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? Motole, Eddie?
Now it's okay.
Okay, fine. Professor Ni, welcome. It's nice to see you. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I have, since I don't see a queue, I have a few questions, if you allow me to. The first one is about the appeal committee. And I'll be interested in knowing if you have plans to reconstitute it and when that may be. My second question is, there's been fair amount of allegations of attempt to manage a process in a way that was unpalatable to a number of people, and I've been reading about it. There's been two of them. One had to do with PDP nominations, and some secondaries were, not the way they were supposed to be or expected to be. And we've also heard similar things regarding the board elections or read about them, allegations of spam, attempted bribery, and so on. Are we going to investigate these things and maybe take some actions, or maybe come out with mechanisms that will help prevent another such problem? Because I think if we don't, with the repeated incursions, you risk losing the integrity of our leadership. And I like that to be addressed. My last one has to do, and I've said it a number of times, has to do with stakeholder balance. Currently, we hear a lot of, you might say, airtime or statements or things from people who do not run networks. And I think if you don't have a good balance, you may end up going the wrong way. So I'm once again going to, appeal to members to become more active, because the clue is very important in policy making and expressing the true nature of what we need as policy. And if we can do that, we can avoid potential capture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ni. We have, I think, 3 or 4 questions. One question was about the election. One was about the elections. The other one was related to, I think, appeal committee. The third one was related to members being contacted, if I understand correctly. And the fourth one was about the nomination committee and all going forward. Okay, on the elections, given that I'm both here, I would like to be impartial on this, so I won't comment about the elections. I'm going to give the floor to somebody from the election committee to comment on the election part. For the WHOIS contact information, the CEO will comment about it. Then I'll get back to the appeal committee comment and the PTP comments afterwards. Okay, Eddie, do you want to go first? Okay, the CEO will go first.
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me well. Basically, we also received the same messages about the information. Some members were complaining about the fact that the information, wondering if we are the one who provide the information, and would like to reassure our members that we did not get involved in any. We only provide the information as per the information you provided to us on the WHOIS, and basic information that are meant for queries to the WHOIS. And we are not involved into this, and eventually we will see what the members request from us and make sure that we provide the support that is expected from us. Thank you.
I don't see Krishna nearby. Oh, he's going to answer from his place. Okay, Mr. Dundee is our legal officer. He's from the election committee, so I'll give him the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I understand the question pertains to the conduct from certain candidates during this election period. Well, let me allow me to first remind all concerned with regard to the relevant provisions of the bylaw when it comes to elections. Now, elections at Afghanistan, the two main provisions that we are concerned with is Section 9 and Section 10 of the bylaw. Section 9 talks about the role and responsibilities of the GovCom, and Section 10 talks about the responsibilities of the ECOM. Now, when we look at the provisions of these two sections of the bylaw, it's very clear that the role of both the NOMCOM and the ECOM, they are very, very limited, in that the role of the NOMCOM is to come up with criteria for the selection of candidates, to find this an adequate number of candidates for the relevant elections. And when it comes to ECOM, the role is there to provide that administrative support as well as logistics to the elections. And this is what I've always been doing. Now, when it comes to the conduct of candidates during the election period, unfortunately, the bylaw is completely silent on this. And since the bylaw is completely silent on this, this would de facto reflected in the election process that is made and produced and approved by the board. And this explains why the election process that is published makes no provision or reference to any kind of regulate how the conduct of candidates during the election period, whether it should be regulated, and if so, how it should be regulated. And this is why the system as it is, I mean, when I say the system, I mean we act within the parameters as per our mandate found in the bylaw. That's why there's no provision for any, even if one were to opine that one candidate has engaged in improper or irregular practices during the election period, then unfortunately, as matters stand, let me be very clear about this. I say as matters stand because we act within the parameters of the bylaw, and we cannot go outside beyond that. And this is why what the NOMCOM and the ECOM thought it proper, though our mandate is very limited, we issued a reminder. There was a joint communique released by the ECOM and the NOMCOM, just to remind all candidates, because there were concerns that we have taken note from members on the mailing list regarding some emails and unsolicited canvassing being made. Well, we are not here to judge whether those canvassing were solicited or unsolicited, because like I said, we are not mandated to make that judgment as matters stand. But in order to preserve the integrity of our election, we thought it proper to send out this communique, this joint communique, at least to remind all concerned that it is very important to preserve the integrity of all of the elections that we have at hand, so that, and then besides we also trust our voters, our members, so that if somebody consider that one candidate or other candidates are engaging in improper practices, then we, like any other voter, as any reasonable voter would do, well, this is a choice that the voter would make. That's my reply to that, Chair.
Krishna, as usual, for your very informative reply. Before I continue, I see on the chat that somebody from eNetworks said that there were some anonymous participants. The Secretariat will contact these participants to try to get them to identify themselves. I would like to remind the floor that before you speak, please state your name and the resource member whom you are representing. There was a question about the appeal committee, and the board has discussed about the appeal committee over the last 2 months. The board will take a decision at its next meeting. We heard you, Professor Ni, and as I said, we are going to discuss it and decide about the way forward. As for the PDP, I have just one comment. I attended the meetings of the PDP over the last 2 days. It was nice to see everybody discussing, being courteous to each other, and to see the professionalism of the co-chairs. And I hope that resource members will participate in our policy development process, because this is where the policies regarding number, resources are discussed and decided upon. Are there any other questions from the floor? Oh, yeah, I see. Professor Need, you have the floor once again.
This is regarding the legal response that we got. I just want to, I think we all agree that we need to preserve integrity of our process. So there's no question about that. So would the legal counsel make a recommendation for bylaws and modification or enhancement to address these kinds of things? If it is not there, the conduct is silent, then I would be expecting that, because we agree that it's not an acceptable, thing to occur. If it did, would you not, take on the action and propose something like this, through whatever process, governance committee or whatever that you choose? But I'm asking for action. Thank you.
Thank you, Prosani. I'm going to give the floor to Matt Radhakrishnan. He's our legal counsel. He'll be able to elaborate on this.
Thank you, respected Dr. Ni, for the question. I think it is very topical in the sense that we are witnessing at Afrinic some changes in context, changes in environment, which wasn't there 3, 4, 5 years ago. So in order to be able to cope with what is being thrown right now in the midst of either AGMMs or PDPs, and as you rightly point out, we need to ponder very seriously on those issues. And we are going to discuss the matter at the GovCom level with my colleague, the legal officer, as well as with members of the board. And rest assured that there is something which needs to be done. We'll find out the best course that we need to adopt in order that we don't have to have such sort of a, I'll call it between inverted commas, toxic atmosphere whenever we are discussing, whenever we have elections. We have had election very peacefully before. If we can't have it with the same bylaws and the same guidelines, there is the big need to change those bylaws and adapt them to the prevailing circumstances that we are facing right now. Thank you, sir, for the question.
Thank you, Maître Bakisun. I see 3 persons in the queue. I'm going to give Mr. Paul Warner the floor. Please state your name and affiliation, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's Paul Warner here from African Cloud. I am one of the candidates. I have 4 questions here. First question is, Afrinic claims that any change in the IP usage will require justifying the usage. Would it mean that hypothetically, if I have a web customer in my server and he leaves, and a VPN customer comes along, will I need to seek Afrinic's approval first? Secondly, the rest of the world enjoys a $30 per IP on the free open market. With Afrinic having a transfer policy in place, will Afrinic still demand any unused IP addresses be returned to them for free? Thirdly, out-of-region use was extensively discussed in the last decade. and it was a consensus that pre-soft landing space is allowed for out-of-region use. Yet I heard that Afrinics seems to be using bylaw 6.1 to manage other people's resource usage. This is not part of Afrinic policy and has, with good reason, never been approved by the community. Can Afrinic clarify its understanding of out-of-region usage to the member base? And lastly, Madhvi was in charge of the registration department when the IP heist happened. This, at the very least, shows her incompetence. So why is she getting promoted instead of rightfully dismissed? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallner. I'm going to make one comment first. At Afrinic, we have what we call a board of directors. And the board of directors is responsible for oversight of the organization. We also have a very able CEO. Is sitting in the room, face across me, by the way. I don't think that it's in the interest of the organization or the company to discuss specific staff members. If you have an issue with a staff member, I would encourage any of you, any of the resource members, to contact either a board member or the CEO so that we can deal with it internally. And so I won't comment about any particular staff on this call. When it comes to policies, it's been the practice in Afrinic for our policies to be developed by what we call the Policy Development Working Group. It's a working group which is open to resource members and all affected parties. If you want to discuss about, for example, the transfer policy, I don't really have a strong position for or against the transfer policy, but I would encourage you and every other resource member to engage with a working group, maybe propose a policy if you believe that this is what needed for the region. If you want to discuss about out of region usage and all, please discuss it in the policy working group. From the board side, from the African side, as I see it, our job is to implement policies which are devised and developed by the community. And this is how it's been for the last 10 years. I was the chair of the working group, by the way, so this is how it was, and I believe this is how it is now. Thank you. Mr. Scholsten, please, I know your name, you've been on our list since quite a while. It's nice to see you. Mr. Sten is also from is our representative on the ESO, so it's nice to see him in this chat. You have the floor.
Hi, yes, thank you. I'm representing eNetworks with these points. I see in the participants there are a number of anonymous users. This is a members meeting. I'm not sure if they're members, not members, but either way, we should be encouraging people with names, not anonymous, not hiding behind anonymous usernames. We've seen this issue in other working groups of Afrinic. I don't think we should encourage this in an AGM. So they should either be removed or actually identify who they are. Question number 2 is, I'd like to find out what kind of background checks are actually done for election candidates. We've seen that there's certainly a cloud over one of the election candidates for the seat up for elections this year. When he after his election previously, there was a number of issues in the press and in connection with his employment. So I'd like to understand what background checks are done on all candidates and what effects, on those findings, how they're acted upon. And yep, that's it. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sten. Okay, I already commented about the anonymous, what you describe as anonymous users. From what I understand, there are members of staff who are providing support for the meeting, translation services, coordination and all, and they are unfortunately being shown as user 37, user 42 and all. The management is aware of that is causing a slight issue from our flow side. So they are working on it to try to solve it. When it comes to background checks of election candidates, as I mentioned earlier, as chair of the board, my duty is to be impartial. Even if I've been on NOMCOM before, I understand a bit how it works. I won't comment about this. I'll give the floor. Do we have anybody from NOMCOM or the election committee who would like to comment about this? NOMCOM? Abdallah? Oh, Abdallah?
Yes, can I?
Fabian? Would you like to comment, or is Fabian around? Okay, I'll give the floor to Abdallah/Fabian.
Fabian is around. I'll be okay if Fabian can comment, but if he can't, I'll do. But I think Fabian is there.
Is he? I don't see him. Abdallah, Abdallah is a board member, one of my colleagues on the board. Oh, I see Fabian, as Fabian as a speaker. Okay, fine. Fabian, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. The background check we have done for these current elections, I can say we have done it in two main parts. One is to confirm the status of the nominators and seconders, and this we did it through Afrinic to confirm to us if a nominator and a seconder are contact persons of the member companies, and that was done. We also did confirm with the nominees by writing them an email to confirm to us if they agree with the nominations, and all of them they did confirm to us. And for those who did self nominations, I think we had few of them, if not only one. We also, I mean, those who did not do self nomination were many. So we reached them and asked them to confirm to us if they have ever been convicted of bribery and such evil actions, and each one of them confirmed to us via email. So in regard to background check, this is what we did, I can say. Abdallah, you can remind me if I've forgotten something. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the chair of, sorry, can I speak, SM?
Yes, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. I think Fabian has mentioned a lot of, I mean, a majority of what we usually confirm. But what I'd like to bring to the attention of the members, most of the information, the kind of background check we do, quite a bit. Okay, apart from the confirmation of good standing, confirmation of proper nomination, and confirmation of course, the seconder and the nominee. The rest, we depend on the community, because there's usually a comment period where if you have an issue on a candidate, it comes up, and also the candidate also confirms that they don't have any criminal background. So because if you look at Africa and the number of countries we deal with in Africa, we can't engage each government to give us the proper criminal record of a person, but we'll depend on the feedback we'll get from community, and then after that make a follow-up if need be. But you'll see most of the feedback maybe they may come up after the elections have happened. So that's another area. Another area to be looked at. But mainly, will depend on the goodwill and the after information of which comes up if there's any confirmed criminal activity on the particular candidate or person who has been elected. Thank you. I hope I've been able to clarify on the question, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Omari, for this response. I see Paul H. on the queue. Please state your name and affiliation as usual. This is a practice. You have the floor.
Hi. Good morning, Mr. Chair. It's Paul Huell. I represent CrystalWeb as a resource member. I'm actually quite glad that you've moved across to me, because I have two questions which arise from the last sort of 3 minutes worth of discussion. I appreciate, Mr. Chair, your assertion that the board, it's not the board's job to develop the policies always, it's for the PGP processes and so on to do that. However, Mr. Chair, I'm aware of at least one resource transfer policy that has gone through the motions. It's appearing as AFPUB 2019 version 4. That was, went through those motions and appears to be sitting at the board. We're awaiting a staff, policy impact assessment and so on. So what I'm wondering is two things. Number one, is it really the case at the moment that certain matters at policy development, including the fixing up of the appeals committee and that sort of thing, are simply not effectively being brought to bear? Or is it a case that there is actually some obstinance in some quarters against implementing what has been duly promulgated? And if it's the former, what strategies can we expect from the board moving forward to actually ensure that what policies are drafted and go through things correctly and achieve rough consensus are actually implemented? I'm a little concerned that we appear to be having a situation in which there is a policy development process that reaches a certain point, and when it requires that last stamp, that should be a nominal process and a sealing process, that it ends up being held up there, and that actually is a large part of the toxic problem. So, for example, we haven't heard anything from the board as to whether litigation being brought against Afrinic is a result of policies that have been passed but not implemented. Then it's quite likely that that's the case. The second question that I've got, and it ties to the discussion that Mr. Stein brought to the inception, which is there'd been a candidate who, after appointment running uncontested, was revealed to be a crook. Now, my understanding of the bylaws is that there is adequate provision allowing the board to remove one of its members by a 2/3 majority. Now, surely if evidence surfaces that a member of the board is involved in unscrupulous behavior in their home country for which they were terminated from employment, that's the sort of conduct that a rational board that is acting in the fiduciary responsibility to its members would take a vote on and generally speaking, remove such an individual. But that clearly hasn't happened, and that very individual is running in an election again. So it seems a little bit problematic for the nominations committee to say that they have vetted to see that there's no criminal matters outstanding, but the jurisdictions and different countries, criminal record officers do and don't provide information. Well, any candidate representing or domiciled in the Republic of South Africa can present a police clearance certificate. So if the Nomcom wanted, that they could insist that candidates deliver a police clearance certificate. But regardless, termination from employment on the basis of malfeasance in office is easy to ascertain, and it's really the easiest thing. You find out from the board of the organization that terminated the person for malfeasance. So I'm wondering, the first person to take the microphone this morning, seemed to sort of suggest that the organization, needs to be protected against some sort of an outsider taking over. I really am wondering about those conspiracy theories, but it seems far more likely that there needs to be an internal strengthening of a recognition that AfriNIC is not to be have on its board people who've been removed for malfeasance from office, and that AfriNIC's board needs to give effect and implementation to those policies that have been promulgated through the policy development process. And if those two things aren't being done, then I think the organization has an internal problem that it's not facing up to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Okay, may I remind the floor to try to keep your comments brief, and instead of making statements, please ask questions. It's easier for us to respond to questions than to have long statements, because then there are less members who have time to speak. Okay, I'm going to start by, I think you were making a comment about one of our directors who is also a candidate in these elections. In the interest of fairness, I could give the floor to that candidate, but he's also a director. I don't think it's proper to have this debate here. So I'm going to ask that we don't discuss this matter in the open mic section, because this is not about the election. This is about what AfriNIC can do, has done, is doing for its members. I hope that you would understand my position on this. Coming back to the PDP, we've been having discussions about the PDP over the last 2 or 3 years. We had feedback. I think Professor Nee was just mentioned a question about the PDP as well. It was linked to the appeal committee. When it comes to policies are developed by the policy working group. I recall that there was some comment about ratification. I think it was over 3 years ago, when my good friend Deole was one of the co-chairs, and Sami, I know Sami as well, he was another co-chair. They sent some report to the board, and the report was not copied to the working group mailing list, and there was some discussion on the mailing list about what to do going forward, and the working group agreed that henceforth all requests for ratifications or reports which are sent to the board should be also copied to the RPD mailing list. It's quite unfortunate that this might not have happened recently. If this was done, we would have figured out if that email was sent or not sent to the board. From the board side, I can state that I did not receive any request for ratification. I've asked my colleagues about that, and none of them confirmed receipt of that email. We had 2 requests internally. I sent a request to the secretariat twice to go and check all our mail logs to see whether we received some email. We didn't receive any email. So to keep it simple from the board side, it's this. If the working group sends a policy proposal to the board will consider it. It will be on the agenda of the next meeting. Usually, we need like usually 14 days notice. Why? Because I have to build an agenda. It takes time. If you send a document today, don't expect it to be on the agenda for tomorrow's morning's meeting, because it doesn't give time to the board members to read about it. But usually the board does not block policies. The board has never blocked any policy. What the board does that when we receive a request, we don't even discuss about whether there's a request or not. Why? Because usually when things are done transparently, I mean, everybody sees that there's a request. There's no discussion or controversy about whether the email arrived or not. We just discuss the request, we consider the request, and we see what to do about it. We have 2 new co-chairs on the working group now. And I haven't discussed this specific pattern with them, because, as a board member, it's not for me to go and tell them, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. I respect their independence. I respect their fairness. I respect their integrity. I hope that they'll do whatever needs to be done so that the request by Mr. H. is processed according to what the working group decided. I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Wallner.
Thank you, Chair. I will keep this short. So I posed 4 questions. You addressed the 4th one, but I would like to get some clarification on the first 3, if that would be okay.
You just give me a brief reminder of the first 3.
Sure. It was on Afrinic claims that any change in the IP usage will require re-justifying the usage. Would it mean that if I have a customer who's taking web services and later change?
Yeah. What your question basically is about change in need. It's a policy. It was, I mean, I didn't write the policy, by the way. It's in our IPv4 policy. I'll let the CEO comment about it.
Okay.
CEO.
Thank you very much for this question. As we said in yesterday's session, we are aware that there is a confusion on the expression of need. Now, I also understand that it seems as if, or it may feel as if you are getting it as if we're becoming too stringent, but it is not the case. Because of that, we have, I think the colleague said that yesterday, we have planned to have webinars where we're going to discuss the need. Yesterday, we spoke about the different needs, and it is a normal, concept in different areas. And when we have these webinars to discuss about this need, we will see and clarify on this. And I hope you'll be there and pose all your questions in that place. Thank you.
You also had another question which you said that I did not respond to, or nobody responded to. Could you just remind me about the question?
Yes, sure. Okay, I'll repeat the question. So the rest of the world currently enjoys $30 per IP on the free market. With Afrinic having a transfer policy in place, will Afrinic still demand any unused IP addresses be returned to them for free?
Okay, I'm going to give. I can hear myself. I'm going to give the floor to CEO. So my question to the CEO would be, okay, what does the policy says?
Yeah, thank you. Basically, we are not doing anything that is beyond the scope of all that we have as documents. So we have the bylaw, we have the RSA, we have the CPM, and we'll stick within those. Of course, that's why I said we understand that people sometimes misunderstand. Now, we will have to make sure that whatever change happens is consistent with all the documents that we are currently governing the different relationships that we have. So this is going to be discussed again in the webinar that we'll have, and we're okay to have this debate at that point.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Sort of. And then I would have to say no, actually.
Fair enough.
But and my third question, the out of region use was extensively discussed in the last decade, and it was a consensus that the pre-soft landing space is allowed for out of region use. Yet I heard that Afrinic seems to be using bylaw 6.1 to manage other people's resource usage. This is not part of the Afrinic policy and has, with good reason, never been approved by the community. Can Afrinic clarify its understanding of the out-of-region usage?
Thank you. I think I'll give the floor to CEO/legal. Oh, by the way, I've been in the working group since a while. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about out-of-region use over the last 10 years.
Yes.
But you have a very... Are you asking about the general policy in that regards in respect to the RSA and the policies, or are you referring to a specific case?
I'm asking in general.
In general, what we do is that, from what I understand from management, is that we have an RSA which is signed by all the resource members, and resource members, it's like a agreement between Afrinic as an RIO and the resource members, and we work according to what's written in the RSA when it comes to the terms and conditions. As for policies, for out-of-region policies, okay, I've read the IPv4 policy. I must have read it several years ago. I think I even proposed some change some time back. It was rejected because this is how consensus works. I don't know the specifics of the case. Could you reach out to member services on your question so that we can come with a more formal answer to it, because I don't know the answer right now at this stage. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. Are you okay with that, to reach out to member services to get an answer?
I could do that. Would Eddie be able to comment on this?
Eddie,
on what,
would you like to comment on that?
Again, as I said, I've not seen any document that says that IP address are properties. Members are simply given the privilege and the right to use it up, the address subject to their needs. This is what the current documentation says. Unless I miss somewhere something, the RSA, and I know you may have a different understanding, but as it stands today, IP address are not properties. Yes, we have a different group of IP holders, which is in the group of legacy. If we go back at the beginning of the inception of all these institutions, let it be IANA and all that, I've not seen a place where we say that IP address is property, unless for some group of other users which were provided earlier on. So in this case, if you still have questions about that, we also have other people in the queue, but at this point, I will not say much beyond what is there in the RSA that the members signed, because at that time, people signed and agreed with the terms that were there, and these are the terms that we are currently going on with. Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry, Eddie, just to come back on that, I don't think you're answering the question. Can the resources be used out of region?
May I, please? Okay,
sure.
You're asking a very, it sounds like an easy question. It sounds like a yes or no question. I think that it's better to contact member services and Eddie as well, if you wish. We have a CEO who is here in the office. He works 9 to 5 or 9 to 12 sometimes at night. I'm sure you'll get a response. If you don't get a response, you see me on the mailing list, just drop me an email and I'll follow up to see that I make sure that you get a response to your question. Is that okay with you?
I suppose we'll have to do so. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I see Mr. Sukun. Please state your name and affiliation, please. Okay. I'm not hearing anything from Mr. Sukun. I'm going to give the floor to the next person in the queue then. Mr. Hussain.
My name is Abdul Karim. I represent University of Ilorin and Bayero University, Kano. I want to go back to one of the questions in which you have addressed earlier today. The first question has to do with the issue of fairness. When you were discussing the issue of elections regarding members, when the first question was posed, you allowed an extensive discussion about it. And when you had another question, you decided to say that it is not what we can discuss now. It is something that had to be discussed. Let me just say that I have nothing against any of the candidates. And I just want to look at the issue of fairness, that you allowed discussion earlier on, and all of a sudden you decided not to allow discussion saying it's an election issue and it shouldn't be discussed. It's just the issue of fairness on that. And also, I was the co-chair when a policy proposal was sent to the board, and I can confirm that that proposal was sent to the board. And the board did not receive the proposal as it was sent, as I was reliably informed. Well, I think internally, if the board has nothing against.
One moment, please. Who's speaking? Is it Mr. Hussein?
My name, it's appearing as Hussein, but I am Abdul Karim.
Sorry. First of all, I gave the floor to Mr. Hussein. So I won't cut you, but I would like you to please state your name and affiliation. Then you can continue. And let's not get into long discussions. Please ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Abdul Karim. I am representing University of Ilorin, a resource member, and Bayero University in Kano. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There was a comment earlier about candidates, about fairness and all. Okay, other board is not, I didn't want us to get into the election debate. Why? Because the election happens after this session, first of all. And secondly, my second point is that it's good to give people the floor and let them ask, see what they like within reason. So I didn't stop people from talking because of this. From the board side, I'm not responding to it, but as you mentioned, you made a very good point about fairness. So I'll give the floor to our legal so that they can comment about the fairness in respect to board directors and the case of Mr. M. Pisani. What does the company say about it? What does the board ask to do in such a case? Do we need evidence of some impropriety to take a decision, or do we just like, I don't like, okay, to keep it simple is this. Let's say, for example, Eddie, I'm going to use Eddie as an example. Eddie is always a good example. Ashok with my legal comes to me and say, Eddie took a banana from the fridge and is not allowed for the banana. I don't have any proof of that. So can I remove him as director of Afinic because of that, because of some ESC? Basically, that's the type of question I'm hearing. Can the legal please comment about that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You see, this is the issue of a sitting director seeking re-election and associating his candidature to whatever happened in the past in the professional capacity he was occupying. This issue, if I'm not mistaken, was raised again during the last election. But for us, we stand guided by what evidence comes to us whenever there is the need to examine the credential or the status of a particular candidate. I'm not going to move into the jurisdiction of the nomination committee and tell you what they have done. As far as I'm aware, I sit on the board for each meeting. We haven't had any evidence which can establish the fact that that particular gentleman has been convicted, found guilty of any misfeasance, if I might use the word somebody said earlier. If ever there is such evidence of misfeasance or other despicable conduct, of course, the board would be alive to that and would take the appropriate decision in the circumstances. Let me just tell you, right now, we don't have such evidence. So until there is what we call the principle of innocence. Somebody hasn't been proved guilty, so he is considered to be the presumption of innocence. He's innocent, so we have this. We go by this. So today, if the situation changes regarding a particular person, we have to act, and maybe otherwise, or depending on what we read, what we see. Thank you.
Okay, we have 3 minutes left before the AGMM. I'm going to give, there are 4 persons in the queue. I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds each, and then we're going to close this open mic session. Mr. Echtel, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to keep this very brief. I just want to ascertain, does the board regard itself as bound to act in good faith in all of its dealings with members? That's the term that keeps coming up in the membership agreements and so on. And I just want to ascertain from the board whether or not, yes, in answering questions around interdomain transfers and the like, does the board hold itself absolutely bound to the legal standards of acting in good faith? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think you already know that as directors, each and every director is bound by what we call the Companies Act 2001 of Mauritius, and this is our stand on this matter. There's, I think, section 153 of the Companies Act speaks about the duties of a director. There's good faith, honesty, and all in there. It's already in there. I don't see what more I can say about it. I'm going to give the floor to Professor Queno, which is 30 seconds, please.
2 brief questions. How could a co-chair claim sent mail and copied lists and no one got it? I've not seen it. We're an open community. Second, this discussion on property versus service, it worries me. What do we want new emerging countries that come after people have propertized the service resources to do? And if it was property, are you suggesting that the initial board members should have just shared the properties and gone away? Thank you.
Sorry, Professor Ni, I hear your point. It's been discussed before. We are a bit short of time, so maybe if you want, we can take it on the mailing list, or we can even have a webinar afterwards to discuss about it. I think Ashok already commented on property. I'm going to take the next question, please. Mr. Walder, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Sorry.
Thank you very much. This is a question for Eddie. When are those webinars going to be happening that you spoke about on the CPM?
Thank you, Eddie. You have the floor.
Within the next 2 months, we'll have a webinar on the leads. Thank you.
Is there an exact date or?
We'll have it. I said within the next.
Okay.
Yep. The last question. So no, I'm going to give 30 seconds because I don't want to be late to for my AGMM. You have the floor.
And I just wanted to quickly of us with the discussions which some members are claiming had not been sent to the board, and the former co-chair was also claiming as such. Let it be on record that, especially in the RIR transfer policy, it is under appeal, and there are 2 appeals from the Policy Development Working Group that have been lodged against that policy. And that policy has some implications to the organization, and we have, as members, also tasked the organization with some questions regarding that policy, and we had feedback from the organization in as far as the implications of the policy would be, and it should be on record that that policy is still under appeal. This is what I wanted to share with the rest of the membership.
Thank you for being Mr. I really appreciate it. I'm going to close the mic line, and I won't take any questions now because it's 10 UTC. I would like to welcome everybody to the annual general meetings of the AFRINIC. First, let's go to the quorum. I'm going to go to ask the directors to come to the mic, identify themselves. Okay, are there any regional directors present?
Yes. What, Chair? Did you
Yes.
call non-regional?
Yes.
Did you say non-regional or regional?
You can go ahead. Are you present?
Okay, non-regional. Yes, I'm present.
Okay, we have one. Okay. Oh, Benjamin.
Yes, Chair. Non-regional seat 8 also present.
Okay, 2 non-regionals. I need 4 other regional seats.
Okay, this is Habib Yusuf on North Africa region, present.
Okay, and any more volunteers from the board? Habib, I like your shirt, Habib, by the way. Nice shirt.
Yeah, so this is a sport you like. It's nearly summer, so.
Abdallah?
I like the haircut of Sean. Makes him look much younger. Good haircut, Sean.
Abdallah?
Guys.
Okay.
Chairman.
Present? Okay. Wale, Dr. Wale? I think I can hear you. Yeah. Are there other directors who are present? I'm present, by the way. I'm from the Indian Ocean. We have 1 regional. I'm regional. Professor Habib is regional. Yeah.
This is Abdallah.
Thank you, Abdallah.
Yes, Chair. Diwali just sent me a message that he's having network issues, but he's also trying to reconnect. He was on the call before. Dr. Wale.
Dr. Wale.
Sure, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
I'm over on, but I'm here.
Okay, we have 4 regional, we have 1 non-regional, and I think we have more directors. I need 5 resource members to state name and affiliation so that we can check the quorum. Shorstein, I think you were on the call. Oh, he's in the chat. Okay.
No, I think Saul was raising his hand. Maybe he dropped it. Something.
Oh, Nishal. Okay, let me check the chat. I see Mr. Gabadan, who is from PCH, is a resource member. I see Mr. Jaco Kron, who is from Ultimate Linux Solutions. Is it resource member? Mr. Nitin Sukan, La Sentinelle Limited Mauritius, resource member. Mark Elkins, I know Mark, by the way. Hi, Mark. POSIX Systems, resource member. We have Dr. Professor Queno, who is from Ghana.com, resource member. Mr. Mina from SICOM, resource member. I think we have more than enough. So, Legal, can we check? Do we have quorum?
Yes, Chair. So you have 4 regional members, 1 non-regional, and 5 resource members, representative of resource members. So the quorum is 10, so you have 10 members to proceed.
Thank you.
And the name have been taken down.
Thank you. Let's have the minutes of the last AGMM, please. The minutes on the screen. Okay, the minutes on the screen. Let's scroll to it. Page 1. Let's go to page 2, please. Page 3. 4. Let's run to it until 14. And I'm asked, I need a proposal and a seconded so that the meeting approve the minutes of the AGMM, which was held in 2020. Virtually, by the way.
I propose, Chair.
Proposed by Professor Habib, is a director. Seconded. Oh, Haitam, are you seconding? Okay, seconded by Mr. Noah Maina. And what's your affiliation, please? SICOM. Are there any objections to the adoption of the minutes of the AGMM, which was held on 18th September 2020? I don't see any hands raised. I don't see any concern in the chat. So the minutes of the meetings are approved. Let's move to the next item, which is the board activities update. That's my presentation. Okay, here's my slide. Oh, before I continue, our secretary reminded me that we will be closing, I mean, not we, the election committee will be closing the election platform at 10:40 UTC. So if you are not voted, I would like to encourage everybody, all the members, to vote in the board elections and the governance committee elections. Thank you. Okay, this is my board report for last year. Let's go to slide 2, please. Yeah, the board is constituted of 9 board members. We have Mr. Abdallah Omari, who is in the East African seat. Mr. Ushan is one of our independent directors. We have Mr. Eddie Ayuwa, who is our CEO. We have Dr. Emmanuel Adekan, who is for the West African seat. We have Professor Habib, who is from North Africa. He's also the vice chair of the board. We have Oluwaseun JDG, who is an independent, who is in an independent seat. We have Mr. Serge Ilunga, who is for Central Africa. The board chair. I'm also in the seat for the Indian Ocean. And lastly, we have Mr. Vika Mpisani, who is occupying the South African seat. Next slide, please. Okay. The board held 14 meetings last year. We took 45 resolutions. You can find the resolutions and our notes of meeting, our minutes of meeting on our website. For for transparency reasons, we publish our minutes on the website so that anybody, whether it's members, resource members, community, or anybody on the internet, can read what we are discussed and what we decided upon. Next slide, please. We have several committees because the board, as a board, we work through committees usually. We have an audit committee, which is chaired by Mr. Ilunga. We have a finance committee, which is currently chaired by Mr. Mpisane Vika. We have the remuneration committee, which is chaired by Professor Habib. We had a technical committee. I would say we had. Why? Because we closed down that committee a few months ago. It was chaired by Mr. Ishan. We also have an ad hoc committee, which is the reform committee. I think it's being chaired by Mr. Ajel Aplogan. We had a recall committee that was also an ad hoc committee, which was set up because we received a petition to recall the PDWG co-chairs. We also have a nomination committee, but that committee is, as you know, it's an independent committee of the board, and it's currently being chaired by Fabien Abogas. He was on the chat earlier. Let's see our achievements as a board for the past year. We adopted a new strategic plan for 2021-2023. Before we adopted this, we had some virtual meetings to brainstorm about it. We also had our first AGMM online last year. It was quite innovative, if I can say that is. We introduced a new contingency policy because when it comes to the budget, we have a budget line which is for contingencies. The board discussed about the matter some time back. We found out that we did not have any policy in place for that. So we designed some policy internally and the board approved the policy. Last year was a difficult year. As we all know, unfortunately, we have what we call this pandemic, COVID-19. We understand that it might have had some adverse effects on our membership. And the board understand that it's a problem, and as an ad hoc measure, we provided an ad hoc financial relief to those members who were late in their payments. We extended the late payment penalty from March 2020 to August 2020 so that it would not come in, it would give some release to our members. We also made some changes to the late penalty process and the closures so that we don't just come in and tell members, okay, you are late, we need money from you. We extended the deadlines so that we can provide relief. Next slide, please. Okay, one of the challenges I'm going to speak to you as a board chair. I was chair for the last, I'm still chair at the moment for the last 8 months. It's been quite a challenge. First of all, we had to do our strategic planning online. Over the years, we've been having in-person meetings to discuss about these matters. It's quite a challenge when you don't sit in the same room as our other colleagues and discuss about it, but we did it anyway. We had virtual meetings all through the year. You see that the board has 14 board meetings. It was all done virtually. It would be good if we could sit down in a room and discuss about academic affairs. Unfortunately, that was not possible. We also faced the challenge of, it was the first time which we have a board, we received what we call a petition to recall the policy development working group co-chairs. And we have a board, what we did, we set up a recall committee, which was supposed to be independent from the working group to look into the matter. One of the other challenges which we noted for 2020 is the number of resource members participating in voting. There was quite a low voter turnout on voting on the special resolutions for last year. We would like to bring this to the attention of our resource members and encourage them to participate in these special resolutions in future. Why? Because it's, as we all know, Afrinic is a membership-based organization, and it's a member who gets to decide and drive the future of Afrinic. We have, unfortunately, some misappropriation of IP addresses. It's an ongoing case. It's monitored by management. I think management reported on that yesterday. If you have any questions, feel free to contact our management and they'll provide feedback within the realms of what's possible. We also have, unfortunately, some legal cases. There was a briefing about it yesterday. I think we had 4 legal cases. I won't get into the details of the legal cases, but if anybody wants to know anything about it, feel free to ask questions. As long as it's allowed by law, we'll respond to it. Okay, I see a comment from Mr. Jacob Kuhn. Our members made aware of these special resolutions that needed voting on. Okay, so you're asking basically whether we had like some awareness campaign or something like that, Mr. Kron? From what I understand, from last year, first of all, we sent a notice of meeting to all the resource members and registered members, and we mention on which issues they have to vote on. For example, if there are special resolutions, they are made aware, they are informed that there are this resolution and they have to vote on it. And it's the same as for the election of the board. It's sent out to the members. I think we send it 14 days, at least 14 days before the election. Do you have a date subject for those? Okay, Mr. Kron, can we follow up on this on the mailings because we are getting into the details? I don't have this on end now, but let's follow up on the mailing list. I'm going to move to the next item on the agenda, by the way. It's the CEO is going to present his activities.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'd like to say how humbling it is to be in this situation, in this position, and even in this presence of, I would say, members of Africa, and or representing members of resource, representative of the members on the continent. Next slide, please. So Afrinic was created again, as we know, in 2005, and as a 5th area to provide services for this service region. And I'll give you a report of what happened in 2020 and maybe sometimes give some quick updates where necessary. So last year we distributed to 948,000 IP addresses, and for IPv6 it was 89/32s and 194 ASN were assigned. This gives us the full numbers that we see there with 118 million IP addresses and 2,221 ASN assigned since 2004. Next, please. On this graph, we can see that the Afrinic membership has been growing, and we currently, in 2020, we ended at 1,836, and we aim to have this year, our target is to cross the bar of the 2,000 members. Next, please. This one also is showing membership by category and the growth since 2016 to 2020, but the next graph will talk a bit more about that. Yes, where we have African members, excuse me, African members by category. As you can see, the early are 69% and the end users are 30%, and associate members are a very tiny percentage, which we aim to grow this year. In the strategic plan, we spoke about extending efforts to grow the end users and also finding compelling reason for people to register as associate members. So this is some of the activities that we are currently focusing on. Next, please. Yes, so you can see the trend of IPv4 distribution, and as you can see, it's getting flat. It's also mainly explained by the fact that we've reached the soft landing phase 2, and we are now continuing to provide resources. Go to the next slide, please. I'll talk about the soft landing later. So let's focus now. The next slide shows the growth in V6, where we're now having. So this number is not. I don't know if you have the same challenge, but sorry for this. We'll make sure it is more visible next time. But the graph gets to 9,675 in 2020. And yesterday, there's one thing about distribution of IP addresses, but there's another thing about availability or announcing those resources. And we talked yesterday about some of the activities that I'll talk about again later in my presentation, where we are doing a lot of effort to see members using the IPv6 that have been allocated to them. And the next one shows the ASN number distribution. A trend where we are still at 2,234 AS numbers, and generally it increases as we increase the number of members. Next one, please. As I said before, we've reached the soft landing on 13th of January 2020, and since then, the maximum allocation that we provide is a /22, while the minimum allocation we are providing is a /24. And we are still holding 1.8 million IP addresses. So next, I'll be talking about the different other activities that we do besides the registry services. We've been very active in the capacity building in spite of the pandemic, where we have done activities like the webinars, the IPv6 help desk request, and also e-learning courses. We are putting a lot of emphasis on the e-learning courses to allow people to learn by themselves. And the pandemic has showed us that the face-to-face courses are becoming more and more challenging. And even when the flights are going to be allowed, we believe that a lot of people can benefit a lot to consume the online courses. We are also doing efforts to translate those courses and make sure that they are available not only in English, but in French. And we also lately started discussion to have them in Arabic. We also have IPv6 Deployathon, where actually these are the participants that shared the experience yesterday on how this is working with them. Next slide, please. Yes, sorry for this. A lot of policy development activity took place in 2020 with strong participation from community members from within and even outside of the region, which is a welcome environment. And so far, last year, we had 2 policies that were implemented, one in adjusting the IPv6 PA policy, and the other one on the multi-homing not required for ASN. 7 policies were proposed in 2020. And other policies were also proposed this year. I will not go through all of them. So this is an update. I'll go now to the finance update. We saw membership fee income drop by 3.6% from 5.6 to 5.5 in 2020. And the main reason is what the chair mentioned before, when we did a comparison between the numbers between the 2 years. I would say, unfortunately, we're collecting about $200,000 in late penalty fees. We want to say it here, we really are not up after these late penalty fees, and we really encourage the members to pay on time. And that extension, where members were given, I would say, an extension to pay this, made us see from 200,000, it reduced to close to 70,000 for last year. Of course, the operating costs reduced also because some of the activities that were happening didn't happen, and the HR costs appeared as if it increased, but in reality it's because of the fact that the total cost was decreased. Net surplus was received of more than 2 million. It was recorded for the financial year ending 31st of December. Now, the total reserve, reflecting a growth of 37%, increasing to 8 million. In addition, we managed to put a fixed deposit of $1 million, hence increasing the strategic cash reserve to 4.338 million. The liquidity ratio continued to improve in light of the increasing closing total cash holding. Next slide, please. On the following slide, you'll see some graph that show the trend of historical fee revenue level. And as you can see, that decrease is appearing in the 2020 due for the reason that we shared. And of course, some members also did not manage to honor the fees. Next one shows the graph about Afrinic historical reserve. That is also what I shared earlier on. And the next one also shows the Afrinic historical cash holding, which now gets to 9.2 million. The Afrinic operating cost level, the next slide, also has been increasing, decreasing, but we are currently, last year ended at 3.4, and I'm sure that the report also from the audits committee and the other team will clarify most of this. And the following graph is about the Afrinic historical liquidity ratio, which is an indication of where we stand today. We managed to, we also had 4 legal cases that that were discussed, and then we also have we produced the report, even if it happened this year, the report on misappropriation. We produced the report on misappropriation and the police, next slide, and the update on the police investigation. And we are in touch with the police, and we stand informed that the investigation is still ongoing, but we have some limitation on how much information we can disclose in this situation. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for registering, and we are hearing you. We've heard some of the comments we made earlier on. We took note. We may not have the time to answer all of them, but we took note of them, and for sure we'll make sure that we provide you the best service possible. Thank you, Chen.
Thank you, CEO, for this presentation. I see that we have 13 or 12 minutes left before the closing of the online election platform. From what I understand, it's quite easy to get vote. I would like to encourage all resource members to vote for your candidate. You have 12 minutes left. We are ready to receive the report of the external auditor. So I'm going to ask a member of the audit committee to present that report.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Chair. My name is Benjamin Shen, and I'm a member of the Audit Committee, and I'll be presenting the African financial statements for the year 2020. Next slide, yes. The Audit Committee is a subset of the board, and it comprises of 4 members. Serge Larunga, myself, Benjamin Shen, Owushonu Ojei, and Adewale Adubuku. The terms and reference of the audit committee can be found at the URL listed below. Thank you, please. Next slide, please. Okay, this report represents the major aspects of the financial statement for Afrinic for the year 2020. And the audit exercise was actually done by BDO, and they issued an unqualified report. The full financial statements and the full audits that have been audited and approved and published, and it can be found at the URL below. Next slide, please. The financial statements, the Afrinic's financial stand as of 31st December 2020. The financial statements of the African Information Center, Afrinic, is set out on pages 5 to 37 of the link. It contains the financial statement for financial position as of 31st December 2020, a statement of comprehensive income and of the year and then ended, a statement of changes of equity for the last year and then ended, a statement of cash flow for the year then ended, and notes comprising of significant accounting policies and other explanatory information. Next slide, please. Okay. So from the balance sheet of Afrinic, we currently stand at $10,820,555 US, which is about a 28% increase from the previous year. The full notes can be found on notes 7, 8, and 9, and 16 on pages 25, 26, and 32 respectively. And then I've taken the opportunity to break down the figures actually. So 3,089,970 was the total trade, made up of payments and other receivables, and for the year 2020. And the notes can be found on notes 7, 8, and pages 24, 25 also. About $1.5 million was in advance payments and were only available this year. Also can be found on note 16B and page 32. For the fire project, Afrinic received $16,257, and then the available cash for Afrinic to use was about $3.3 million. And then for the year 2020, we realized an amount of $4.3 million as the strategic cash reserve, which is a little bit higher than what was received last year, which was about $3.2 million. Next slide, please. From the income statements, the income for the year was about $5.6 million, which is a decrease of about 33.5% from the previous year. The income for members was about $4.9 million, and then it can be found on note 11 and note 27 and page 27. And income from the non-recurring fees was about $544,000, also from note 11 and 27 of the statements. In total, Afrinic received about $36,544 from grants, scholarships, and other incomes unrelated to fees. And the full explanation is on note 11 on page 27. We realized a net surplus, of $2.1 million as recorded for the 2020 financial year, which was from the previous $1.2 million surplus last year. Next slide, please. This graph actually puts into perspective the income of Afrinic for the past 6 years or so, and also showing the percentage of growth over the same period. And whilst there's a consistent growth in income, the percentage of growth has been constantly declining since 2015 and 2016 rather. And last year we saw a significant drop in the percentage of growth. Next slide, please. For our expenses, also from the income statement, the expenses are broken down into two major categories: administrative and distribution expenses. And the administration expenses refer to all HR and office costs, and anything else outside these two are considered as a distribution cost. So the net expenses for the year 2020 was $3.5 million, and which is a decrease of about $1 million from last year, representing about 23%. So actually, our expenses went down by 23% from last year. The administrative expenses was a total of $3,135,777, which is a decrease of $35,000 from last year, and that can be found on note 15. Details can be found on note 15. Distribution expenses went down by 70% from the previous year, and this in 2020 it was $345,461. There was a net impairment for net impairment losses and on financial assets and bad debts. Afrinic was able to improve by a budget of 70%, and it was only $56,000 from the previous year of $276,303. Next slide, please. I would now like to pass the mic back to the chair for the adoption of the financial statements.
I would like to thank Mr. Sean for his report on the auditor's report. As I would like to remind our members that the AFS audited financial reports are published on our website. We also have quarterly financial statements which are published on our website. It's 10. Benjamin, could you open your mic, please, Benjamin?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here.
So there's it's up to you to propose this resolution. It's to consider audited financial statements for the year. Yeah.
Yes, I wanted members to first adopt the financial statement. So if you could get them to adopt the financial statements for this year, that's why
Okay, I'm going to propose. Yeah, the resolution is to consider Afrinic's audited financial statement for the year ended 31st December 2020. I need a proposer and a seconder for this resolution. Okay, I should do it in the chat. Let me check. Okay, proposals by Haitam. It's nice to see you, Haitam, by the way. I think he affiliation is MCTI, Government of Egypt. I think we know him. Thanks for joining us, Haitam. Seconded MCIT. Seconded by Mr. Sukan, is affiliated with La Sentinel Limited. Are there any objection to the resolution to consider Afrinic's audited financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2020? I'm not seeing any objection in the chat. I'm not seeing any hands raised. The audited financial statement for the year ended 31st December 2020 is approved. Let's go to 5.3, which is about the appointment of auditors, of external auditors.
Okay,
Mr.
and then next slide, please. Thank you, Chair.
You have the floor.
Okay. So, appointment of the external auditors for the year 2021. BDO was approved to serve as Afrinic's external auditors for the year 2020 financial year during the last AGM and for the second time running. The board shall recommend the reappointment of BDO as Afrinic's external auditors for the 2021 financial year during this AGM, and it will be the third and final time as per the board resolution. So in the statement, it's hereby stated as for. Next slide, please. So the statement for reappointment of BDO as the external auditors for the year financial years is resolved to reappoint BDO as the external auditor for the financial year 2021. Oh, okay. Sorry, SM, we can't hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Ishan. I'm going to ask for a proposal and a seconder on this resolution to reappoint, BDO as the external auditor for the financial year 2021, which is this financial year. Please raise your hand so I don't see anybody. We have a resolution. I need a proposer and a seconder for the resolution. Yeah, I see a comment by Mr. H. Oh, let me comment on this quickly. We already, it was in Kampala, the audit committee under the chairmanship. I think it was of chairmanship. I forgot who was the chairman. I think it was not Dr. Wali, but anyway, it was there was a chair. It was Sean. We already have a members session about this, and we agreed on having what we call a rotation of auditors. It's being done every 3 years. So we already have this policy. I'm going to go back to the resolution. I need somebody to propose it. It's Mark Elkins from POSIX System who is proposing the resolution. It's seconded by, who's seconding it? Seconded by Rian Marie, who is from WIRI Link, South Africa. Kiran, is that a member?
Chair, if I may, please. I understand the BDO auditors are on call, so maybe you might want to recognize them, please.
Yeah. Are there anybody from? I know that somebody from BDO on the call. You have the floor. Could you please introduce yourselves?
The audit manager. We have, as you have already approved the FS, so just a comment on this. We have issued a clean audit opinion on the audit for this company, and we have carried the audit as per ESA.
Thank you, Salima. Okay, we have a proposer and a seconder for the resolution. Are there any objections to the resolution to approve BDO as the external auditor for Afrinic for the financial year 2021? I don't see any objection. So this the members approve this resolution. There's a question in the chat I see where Mr. Krohn was asking where there are comparative quotations obtained for seeking, I think, for the external auditors. Would somebody from the audit committee want to comment about this, please? Benjamin? Oh, Dr. Wali, I think I know he was chair. He was chair of the audit committee as well.
If I may, Chair.
Okay, Sean was also on audit committee. Sean, would you like to comment?
Yes, we actually we're following the lead and engagement rule, which was to continue with auditors that have been previously used for 3 years, and of course we got quotation from BDO. We considered it. We discussed it before we felt that we should still continue with them. Once they are still within the 3 years that was initially agreed to, we don't normally request for quotation from other auditors. I hope that answers the question.
Sorry, I'm not hearing anybody. Thank you, Mr. Udedi.
Responded.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
I
for.
thought I responded to the question. So, is there anything else?
No,
but
I
I'm
don't.
saying from Jacko that it says short answer. No, maybe the response was not sufficient. I mean, this decision too for the 3 years was presented to members at that time, and it was agreed that we could rotate auditor. I mean, use the same auditor for a maximum of 3 years.
Yeah.
And yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Krohn, for these comments. Thank you, Sean. Okay, Mark. I think Mark Elkins was saying something. Let me check. Sorry. And the mic line. Mark? Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, Mark. Are you on the queue or is it on the chat? Ah, it's on the chat. Ah, so let me, Mark Elkins from POSIX ZE made a comment in the chat. From past experience on the board, there's a maximum duration of 3 years for any external auditor. Okay, I don't see any questions about the auditors. So I'm going to close this part of the session if I don't see any more questions. Okay, there's a question about representative of audit firm. Mr. Noah, what's the question? Oh yeah, they're on the call. Okay, let me give you the background. Usually, it's been the practice at Afrinic, well before I become a board member, for the external auditors to be on the call, to be present at the annual general members meeting, to be able to respond to you your comments. There was this, I think it's Miss Nabi, who is currently representing BDO. She introduced herself. Thank you, BDO, for being here, present with us. They are here to answer questions. If any of our members ask questions, it's fair to ask questions. I don't see anything on the call, so I'm going to move forward to the next item. Thank you again. I would like to thank Mr. Sean, Mr. Odediji, Mr. Serge, and Dr. Wali, who are members of our audit committee. It's 10:48. I'm going to give the floor to the chair of the finance committee to present the AFRINIC 2021 financial budget. You have the floor. Please unmute yourself, Vika.
Hi, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Vika. Welcome to Mauritius, by the way. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. I'm going to make a brief presentation on the budget for 2021. This current year, in a way that we are almost halfway through now. Next slide, please. The Finance Committee has 3 members, as we can see there, Abdallah Omari and Eddie Kaihura, the other members. Next slide, please. This slide here is just maybe a summation of what's in the budget. I must say upfront that the budget itself is on the website. It's been published now for quite some time, and members have seen it. So what we've done here on this slide, without getting into details, I think there was a comment in 2020, the 2020 AGM, to try and capture also for the members an activity-based type of expenditure on the budget. So what our finance team at AFRINIC has done in this slide is to really just sum up along the activity lines what the operational and capital expenditure is. As you can see, the majority being on technical infrastructure and so forth. But the key things from the budget that we published online is really just to understand, to remember that Our estimated revenue for this year is at a little more than $6 million US. And then the total budgeted expenses for this year are at 5.3. And of the $6 million US revenue, the majority of it, of course, about 5.9, that's probably like 99% of it will come from the membership fees, and then about 100,000 from other income. Next slide, please. This pie chart really just breaks down to show where the majority of expenditure is going. 51%, well, 51% of our expenditures really on our human resources. It's of course, one could be a bit alarmed by this amount of expenditure on human resources. We are a service-based organization. We employ people and we serve a whole continent. So that's one of the influences of that. But it's fair to say that the figure is slightly better than in prior years. But we still want to, I believe, that Afrinic, beyond this, would want to find ways of minimizing this cost so that it doesn't probably look as it currently looks. But there's justification for it. Then there's a breakdown of other expenditure that you can see there that is quite small compared to the HR budget. Your office expenses and your computer expenses and meeting expenses, which also have dropped largely because of COVID and our inability to meet face-to-face. Next slide, please. That will be then all. The finance or the budget
ensuite, les finances et le budget seront.
For some reason, I'm hearing the translation in French, which is fine.
Alors, je ne sais pas pourquoi j'entends la traduction en français
in a sense,
en même
what
temps
I'm
que je
saying that
Et en
that's
quelque
where the
sorte,
budget can be accessed online. And I would
c'est
like to thank you
là
very
où vous
much
pouvez
for your time.
trouver le budget
Vika,
en
could we-
ligne
Vika,
pour
could we
avoir
stop?
plus d'informations.
Okay, I'm going to ask the secretary to check because I'm hearing the French translation while Vika is presenting it. Okay, just give them 10 seconds. They're very fast over here to fix it. Vika, you can proceed.
In any event, Chair, I'm done. I love the translation, by the way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vika, Vika is the chair of the finance committee. And we also have Mr. Omari, who is on the audit on the finance committee, and we have the CEO as well, who is a member of the audit committee. Do you have any question about the 2021 finance budget? Okay. I see it. Okay, Mr. Krohn, I assume that our good friend, Mr. OJ, my good friend Sean has already answered your question. Are there any questions to Vika about the budget for this year? I'm checking the queue. I don't see any hands raised. Nothing. Okay, fine. I don't have any questions. So, Vika, thank you for this presentation. Please thank your members of your committee, as usual, for their work over the past year. I'm going to join this meeting until 11:05 UTC. Then we'll pick up from there. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back in like 10 minutes.
Yes, sir.
In the meantime, I would like to thank our sponsors. The meeting is virtually hosted by the Internet Services Provider in DRC, ISPA DRC. A big thanks to our sponsors, AIS21 Online. The sponsors are connectivity sponsors, MTEL Mauritius, translation and caption sponsors, Flexotix, inclusivity and diversity sponsor, Dot Africa, and other sponsors, ICANN, Internet Society, Liquid Intelligent Technologies, and DNS Africa. Thank you. We will be back in 6 minutes.
we have a few seconds, so I think we have less than 1 minute before we start after the adjournment. Oh, our break was 15 minutes. Take on the agenda. The time is UTC 11:05, and we're going to ask for the chair of the nomination committee, which is Abu Ghas, to give his nomination committee report. You have the floor, Abu Ghas. We also have a representative of the board on NOMCOM, which is Mr. Omari. If Abu Ghas is having some communication issues, I'll ask Mr. Omari to step in. Oh, he's here. Okay, Abu Ghas, Fabien, it's your call.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. On behalf of, okay, thank you. The first slide is on display. NOMCOM 2021 was appointed on 21st January 2021, and it comprises of the following members: myself as the chair, Caleb as vice chair, Abdallah, who represents the board, and Raymond, who is a member. Next slide, please. And this year, the election processes has been like this. So far, we have 2 positions. One board seat number 5 for Southern Africa, and 1 governance committee seat, which is sub-region independent. We have done several meetings online, specifically on Zoom, and we discussed the streamlined ways to oversee elections. And of course, we have been doing this according to the laid down by laws, principles, and the specific 2021 election guidelines. Next slide, please. For the 2 positions, starting with the board position, seat number 5, we received the 4 nominations. Only 3 sailed through, and we dropped 1 based on the missed criteria. And we did notify him, and he acknowledged. For the GovCom, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, we received only 1 nomination. For the board seat number 5, the final candidates candidates who succeeded to go to the voting is Vika William Pisane, Paul Wallner, and Mark Elkins. And for the GovCom, it's only 1 candidate, Simon Msafiri Baltazar. Next slide, please. As you are aware, most of you are aware, the election timeline countdown is coming to a conclusion today. But we did open e-voting on 20th of May and the proxying appointment. And then we closed proxy appointment on 29th May. And since 20th of May, online election voting has been going on, and it has been concluded today at 10:40 UTC. And we did successfully close it. So later on, today, according to the timetable, we are going to announce the results. Next slide, please. Next slide. Hello. Yeah, on behalf of, thank you. On behalf of the NOMCOM 2021 members, we are, as a team, first of all, we are pleased to be honored with this opportunity to serve Afrinic and the community. We do thank the board for trusting us for this assignment. And we thank Afrinic team, CEO, ECOM team, legal, and IT for their support and the cooperation during this exercise. We thank Afrinic members and the community for doing the nominations and the references, of course, because this has given us a job. Otherwise, we couldn't have a job to do. Of course, we thank the members for voting because they have already voted, and the tally has been done already. Next slide, please. Yeah, and that is it for now. I thank everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabien, for the nomination committee report. On behalf of the board of Afrinic, I would like to thank each of the members of your committee for the work which you have done. It's voluntary work. It's hard work. At the same time, it's for Afrinic, and we really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm going to give the floor to the election committee now. It's 11:11 UTC. Sorry, it's a bit confusing. To give the election committee report.
And thank you, the NOMCOM chair, for his presentation. May we have the slides, please? So I'm here to present to you, ladies and gentlemen, the election committee report for the Afrinic elections, May-June 2021. Why May-June 2021? Because the elections was open on the 20th of May, and then it just closed minutes ago today at 10:40 UTC. Next slide, please. The role of the election committee, me here as vice chairperson of the election committee, it's very important to understand our mandate. The election committee acted in line with Article 10 of the bylaws, and the committee itself consists of Afrinic staff who are appointed by the CEO. The role of the committee, role and responsibility of the committee is to handle all the pre-election processes for all elections being held by Afrinic, as well as ensuring that there is a permanent line of communication between the chair of the NOMCOM and the ECOM, both during and after the election day. Next slide, please. The election process 2021 that has been used for this election, the election process itself was approved by the board pursuant to Article 13.2 of the Afrinic bylaws, and this election process was revised and published in April this year to cater for a 100% online election, given the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, as you may recall, this is the second time we're having a 100% virtual election, the first being last year back in September. Next slide, please. You will recall that the two elections we had this year, one is for board seat number 5. There was one vacancy, and the other vacancy was for the governance committee. Next slide, please. And the election timeline, as the the chair for the NOMCOM just mentioned minutes ago, the election started on the 20th of May. That was when the e-voting started, and we also opened registration for proxy if need be. The proxy registration was closed on the 29th of May, and today was the election day, and the election has already been closed. Next slide, please. So the ballots, it was 100% e-voting platform. As I just mentioned, the registration period for proxies was from 20th of May to 29th of May. And just to mention, we had no request or application for proxy. So this we thank all voters who has taken time to participate in our election process in person, though virtually. Next slide, please. I mentioned about the closing for our election, which was today at 10:40 UTC. Next slide. And I thank you for your attention. That was it from me as chairperson of the ECOM. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dundee, for your election committee report. I would like to thank all members of your committee on behalf of the board for the work which you have done. It's 11:16 UTC. I'll give the floor to the chair of the election committee to announce the results of the elections. Sorry, the CEO corrected me. It's nice to have the CEO in the room with me so that he can catch up stuff for me. Yeah, he's smiling, by the way. I'll give the floor to the chair of the nomination committee to announce the results of the two elections. One is for the board seat number 5, and the second one is for the governance committee election. Mr. Fabien, you have the floor.
Please. Yeah, as it has been said already, we closed the elections, online elections today at 10:40 UTC in the presence of observers and witnesses, trustees, and ECOM team. Next slide, please. Now, the long-awaited is here for you. Board seat number 5. I think before announcing the results, let me tell you the total number of voters for this seat number 5. It was 273. Next, please. I hope everyone can see this has been captured direct from the system, electronic voting system, and the votes are as follows. Against each candidate, Mark Elkins have got 116 votes. Paul Wallner have got 75 votes. Vika William Pisane got 72. And there are 10 voters who decided to abstain. This gives us a total of 273 votes, as I said earlier. And with that, I take this opportunity to congratulate Mark Elkins for winning this position of board member, seat number 5 for Southern Africa. Mark, congratulations, and thank you everyone who voted for in these elections. Next, please. Yeah, the governance committee, we are the only one candidate, and we got total number of votes casted was 96. Next slide, please. And as you can see, this result is a screenshot which has just been captured direct from the system. The only candidate that we have got 78 votes, and 18 voters decided to abstain from giving him a vote. So by these result numbers, I'm happy to announce that Simon Baltazar has won this governance committee position. Congratulations, Simon Baltazar. And thank you. That is it for now.
Thank you, Mr. Fabian, for the results of the election. I would like to thank all the candidates who were nominated and who stood up for the elections. This is how it works. So I would like to welcome Mark Elkins, is going to represent the South African region, board seat number 5 for, I think it's 3 years, a 3-year mandate. This brings us to the end of our AGMM. I would like to thank all resource members who made the time to come and join us for this AGMM. I would like to thank the board members who are present. I would like to thank the NOMCOM members who are present, the election committee members. And I would like to thank our company secretary and our external auditors, BDO, for being present at this meeting. I hope to see you again next year for our next annual general meeting. On this note, I'll ask that we propose a seconder to close this AGMM. The time is 11:21. Do we have a proposal?
Chair.
Yeah.
I second it, Chair.
Okay, who proposed? Proposed. Itam from Egypt, microphone.
No. Okay.
Yeah, Itam is proposing. We need a seconder. Who is the Professor Habib? Yeah, Habib wants his name on the roll. So, Professor Habib, are there any objections to closing this AGMM? I'm not hearing any objection, which is a good thing. So it's 11:22 UTC. The AGMM, the 2021 AGMM is closed. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to everybody, and I wish you a nice day.
Once again, we would like to thank all our sponsors. This meeting is virtually hosted by Internet Service Provider in DRC. A big thanks to our sponsors for the AIS online meeting. Connectivity sponsors MTEL Mauritius, translation and captioning sponsors Flexotix, inclusivity and diversity sponsor Data Africa, and other sponsors ICANN, Internet Society, Liquid Intelligent Technologies, and DNS Africa. Thank you for joining us for the AGMM today. The session is over. Feel free to leave the room at your own convenience. Thank you.